Hi, good evening, everybody. My name's Kari Noren-Hoshal, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer in Sarasota, Florida. Today, I'll be talking about the Venus star points, and this is a fantastic cosmology coming from Ariel Goodman, which many of you know from her work with the asteroids in particular. Just a wonderful astrologer, and I was lucky to attend one of her workshops on the Venus star points. I really, really recommend her book. What I'll be telling you today is just brushing the surface. In the book, you'll see historical realms that are delineated by the Venus star points. And then next year, when I'm available again to present, I would love to do Venus star points in relationships. So get this book, A New Cosmology for the 21st Century, is the full title, Venus Star Points, A New Cosmology for the 21st Century. So why are these important now? Why did Ariel bring this book out? Because about every 120 years, a pair of visible transits occurs, just as we had in 2004 and 2012. And so the book came out in 2010 to get us all ready for 2012. The first of these took place on June 8th, and that was in 2004. I wasn't even aware of them at that point in any useful astrological way. I knew they took place and that Mercury transits also take place, but it wasn't until about 2010 when the book came out and I saw it probably at UAC that I started thinking about how to use them. I was very fortunate to go, I organized a little group to see the Venus transit on June 5th, 2012, and it was incredible. We had some people at the local planetarium helping us. There were some people that had welder's glasses, and we were able to see them. So it looked like this. It's a morning star, and if you see my pointer here, it's this small dot in front of the sun, and it was visible with the naked eye, but we had to, refrain from looking at it for too long. Now, the Mayan Connection. Some of you may have heard my recent presentation with Jose Federico Munoz. The Mayans really ranked Venus as second only to the movements of the sun and moon. And the codex is full, the Dresden Codex, which is one of the few surviving texts, is full of Venus cycles that have been documented in detail. And of course, they were really noticing Venus because it was so strong and constant in the night sky. So in the Codex, this is a page that talks about Venus as being an indicator of a time to go to war when it's in the morning star phase, which is right after it conjuncts the sun. And what does that mean? So a morning star, according to the Maya, is an Amazonian warrior goddess who would attack the enemy under cover of night. And on the other hand, when you have a superior conjunction, which we can't see because it's on the other side of the sun, and it's superior because it's facing the other planets in the solar system, the majority of the larger outer planets, the evening star Venus was equated with a time for peace, a time for coronations, transference of power was safe, and peacetime activities, planting and harvesting, were more oriented towards evening star. So the Greeks also had a similar view of this. They were aware of the superior and inferior conjunctions. So with Aphrodite Pandemos, Pande meaning the world, okay, the earth, it's earthbound. And this is when we can see Venus because it's between us and the sun. And the Taurean qualities of materialism really abound. So this is when she's called the headstrong, impulsive morning star. And you'll be finding out if you go to the instructions that Linda posted, you can either find it in Ariel's book, or if you go to her website right now, it's sophiavenus.com. And then you look at Venus star points, click on that and open that one up, and Venus star points FAQ, frequently asked questions, and it'll say to find out your Venus star point, click here. So you can find out what your sign is and whether you're a morning star or an evening star. Now, Urania is the one that is more linked to Libra, and Libra being the later sign of the zodiac, it is, in the view of the Greeks, linked with spirituality and diplomacy. So during this phase, Venus ascends the sky very slowly, whereas in the morning star phase, it rises quickly. And it's described as having the footsteps of a diplomat, being tapped for leadership. So when I go into a little bit of the women politicians section at the end of this presentation, you will see that many of these people who are evening stars rise through the ranks slowly, and they're tapped for leadership by a mentor. Now, just like a solar and lunar eclipse, you have to have the same declination. So here's the sun, here's Earth, and here's Venus. They've got to be lined up as closely as possible in order for that to happen. Now, the pair of Venus transits is separated by 8 years, and the current cycle that we're in began a very long time ago, about 60 AD, and we alternate between Gemini and Sagittarius. The ones we had in 2012 and 2004 were Gemini. So the next set coming up, and I do have the dates for that, will be in Sagittarius. So when we look at the most recent ones on our radar historically, it was Sag in 1631, 1639. In 1761, 1769, Gemini. It was Sag again in 1874, 1882. And this was when, you know, Queen Victoria was ruling, and she was the longest lived and longest seated ruler of the British crown ever. This is also when suffragism in the States got its start. So that was Sagittarius. Then Gemini again, as we said, 2004, 2012, and Sag will be the next ones, 2017 and 2025. So it's always in the month because of the same sun sign as the Venus, because they've got to be conjunct for us to be able to see, and they have to also be in the same declination or latitude for us to be able to see Venus. So women leaders, prominent women leaders and their rises to power have been observed to happen within about 20 years on either side of Venus transits, going back to the 15 and 1600s. We had Queen Elizabeth I, Catherine de' Medici, who was both a ruler in Italy and then later in France. She was Queen Regent when at least 2 of her sons were on the throne of France and died, and she took over. And Catherine the Great of Russia. And in the 18 and 1900s, we had Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Golda Meir in Israel, Indira Gandhi of India, and in Burma, Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi. So what was going on with the 2004-2012? Well, Angela Merkel, who's considered the decision maker of the EU, and she's an Aquarius evening star, has been chancellor since November 2005. That's a very, very long run. Hillary Clinton is a Virgo evening star, and she made her run for the White House in 2016. Theresa May became the Prime Minister of the UK, July 2016. She's a Cancer. And Oprah Winfrey, in her acceptance speech at the Golden Globes, was alluding to running, and since then has confirmed through her partner, Stedman, and also I've seen it on magazine covers now, she is going to run in 2020. I want to make a point here relating to Jose Federico Munoz, who was on with me for the Mayan calendar talk, that he has said because Oprah currently has her Mayan sign about to enter this phase called the road, the Mayan sign of the road, that indicates a need for patience. So he feels that she'd be better suited to run in 2024 than in 2020. If anybody knows, you know, how to get a message to her, it may save her a hell of a lot of money and effort. But looking at her transits in a Western chart, a non-Mayan chart, because I don't really have the knowledge to put together a transit chart in the Mayan system, it looks pretty like a singular moment in her lifetime. So that remains to be seen, but it is a very interesting development. And Elizabeth Warren, who was seen very visibly campaigning for Hillary once Hillary was the Democratic nominee, is an Aries evening star herself, the senior Democratic senator from Massachusetts. So here's female heads of state and politicos, including secretaries of state, by the three leading VSPs. You see that we've got the Prime Minister of Australia, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Aung San Suu Kyi, who has held different offices in Burma, but I believe is possibly currently under house arrest. Madeleine Albright, our U.S. Secretary of State, first woman Secretary of State for the United States, and Elizabeth Warren that we just mentioned. These are all Aries, morning stars, and the only exception is Elizabeth Warren. She's an evening star. Condoleezza Rice was interesting. Secretary of State to George Bush. She rose through the ranks, but she was his number one confidant, and she was born on the exact day of the Sun-Venus conjunction. She's an exact Scorpio. The first woman president was Vigdis Finnbogadóttir in Iceland. She's an Aquarius. Angela Merkel, Aquarius. Queen Elizabeth II, still reigning, and has now reigned longer than Queen Victoria by a year. She's an Aquarius. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, suffragist rights leader, and Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia. These are all Aquarius Venus star points. The one morning star is Queen Elizabeth II, and this is where Oprah joins the Queen. Oprah Winfrey and Ellen DeGeneres are both exact to the day Aquarius morning star VSPs. So just like Condoleezza Rice, they are the essence of the Aquarius VSP. And I think this is another reason why, and we've seen Oprah's star rising and rising till it really knows no bounds. She's a media star, and she was the one that really launched Obama's run for the presidency. You know, what could be next? This could be the next horizon for her. Virgo is also pretty prominent. Hillary Clinton, Senator of New York and First Lady. Virgo, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. Virgo, Dilma Rousseff, the first female president of Brazil. Virgo, and Mary Robinson, Prime Minister of Ireland. Virgo. And they're all evening stars except for Mary Robinson. So as we're entering the age of Aquarius, there's a need for a greater equality between the sexes, and we've seen this with a rising number of female leaders. Currently in the world, 34% are either heads of state. So heads of state around the world, 34% are women at this point, and the US is late to join the club. Another thing that we've seen hugely on the rise is that same-sex marriage around the world, which began in Holland, has been accepted in so many countries in Europe and the US and other countries. Now, I wanted to make a point of this, and this kind of continues from my Mayan calendar talk. The Kundalini energy point of the world is recognized as shifting about every 13,000 years. And so the last time this shifted was the age of Leo, and many of us know this as the time of Atlantis. And according to shamans, including Jose Federico Munoz, who did the Mayan calendar talk with me, it's been shifting from the male axis in Tibet, where it was formerly, to the Peru-Chile border. And shamans worked together to move the energy, and it was completed in 2013. My colleague Harriet McMahon takes groups to Peru every year, and the shamans she works with have talked about this. Many of you have heard about the meeting of the condor and the eagle. That was some of the early work in moving the Kundalini after what we called the great Leo constellation, 1987. We had a great amount of energy focused on places like Sedona, Arizona, where shamans from around the world were working to raise this energy at the harmonic convergence in Leo. And the VSP was in Leo then too, the Venus star point. And they said the most difficult passage, and you can imagine this, was moving it from Central America over the Panama Canal into Colombia and South America. Some of you may know Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he tells us that spirituality will have a new incarnation with female having her time now to lead humankind. And by 2012, 2013, he wrote in his book, The Serpent of Light, the female spiritual light will become so strong as to be obvious to all who live on the planet. Jose spoke about a period at the end, the last 6 days of December 2021, in the talk we did 2 weeks ago, as being a time of tremendous chaos, followed by a period of enduring peace led by female leaders. So that's going to be a very interesting point in time. The Dalai Lama himself has said that the world will be saved by Western women at his summit speech in 2009 in Vancouver, the Peace Summit speech. So what are our natal Venus star points? Each of us is born with a morning star, which means it comes after the inferior conjunction, which is not really visible because they're not in the same declination. Or you're an evening star, which is after the superior conjunction on the far side of the sun. And they change every 9.5 months. So you can go right now, if you haven't looked yours up, you can look at sophiavenus.com, Ariel Gutman's website. Click on the Venus star point, the Venus star point FAQ, and then click on follow this link. And she's got this great ephemera set up. So what you're looking for is the date before you were born. Look for the one that comes before you were born. Now, it's a star-shaped synodic series. So what happens is that they move from right now, we've just been in Aries, and then January 9th, it went to Capricorn. After Capricorn will be Scorpio. After Scorpio, Leo, then Gemini, and back to Aries again. And if you draw lines through the circle, you get a 5-pointed star, which many of us know as a symbol for Aries. It's a pagan Wiccan symbol. It is the pentagonal synodic series. It takes 8 years, and it consists of 5 cycles of 1.6 years. So if you're born with a morning star, your Venus sign is going to be ahead of your sun sign. I'm a Taurus sun sign. My Venus is in late degrees of Aries. Evening stars, if you were a Taurus, you'd have your Venus behind your sun. So you'd have it in Gemini. And what Ariel Gutman discovered, that what all this means is that the light energy of the sun merges with the love energy of Venus. And it creates unity between the heart and the cosmos and life on Earth. So one of the things that's been noticed back since the time of Leonardo da Vinci and Dan Brown's book about, the female appreciating artists, the female energy appreciating artists, including Da Vinci, was that this Vitruvian man was actually a symbol for Venus. And it also looks quite a bit like a human embryo, or you can say that the perfect proportion is similar to the chambered nautilus. So the Venus star, what it means to you individually is that it encodes you with a particular character that tells how you work to bring a gift to the planet. And typically, this will determine the kind of mark that you leave on the earth as your legacy. I'm a morning star Virgo, and maybe you can tell by my PowerPoints, I really want to get the details right. So I'll spend a lot of time being sure that I've got the information I need to put forward. And I do a lot of communicating of information, both in my readings for clients, but also as a teacher of language. I've taught Spanish and Italian, and so it's very important to me to have the details right. And you'll see this about Virgo VSP people. We want to be of service. So here's the current pattern. 2014, we were in Capricorn. 2015, we went into Leo. This little symbol here, 23 degrees Leo, 22 degrees Capricorn. And that first section, those first 4 years, wound up in Aries. Now, we've just started the Capricorn, and, we all are aware of how we've had this incredibly heavy, intense Capricorn energy lately. And to top it off, the Capricorn VSP just began now. Also this year, on October 26th, 4 degrees Scorpio will be the degree of the next VSP, and it'll be a morning star. So whereas you'll notice that 4 years ago it was an evening star, it's now alternated to be a morning star. After that, August 13, 2019, 22 degrees Leo evening star. June 3rd, 2020 is the next one. So this will be the VSP that the next election will be under, and it's Gemini at 14 degrees. So it's a morning star, and one of the things that I think can be a benefit to Oprah in running is that as an Aquarius morning star, there will be a trine from the VSP to her own personal VSP and to her sun. March 2021, March 26, 2021, it'll be an evening star at 6 degrees of Aries. So what is the percentage? What percentage group are you in? There are few Taurus VSPs still alive. Same thing with Sagittarius. Where we have the majority of the population now is Cancer, Virgo, Aquarius, Scorpio, Aries, Gemini, and Capricorn. And the Leos and Capricorns are just being born. Libra and Pisces will begin. what happens is that Scorpio will fade into Libra and Aries will fade into Pisces. And what's interesting about the Libra one is that if there were to be a female American president elected November 3rd, 2020, then she would have been in office just a year, almost 2 years, when the Libra VSP starts to come in. And the Libra VSP is all about equality and peace. Pisces also is much less Mars oriented and much more Venus oriented. And as we've seen in traditional astrology, Libra and Pisces are in exaltation to each other. So let's go into the VSPs now, starting with Taurus. These people were born between 1825 and 1934. They're down to earth, practical, accurate, instinctual. They have the power of attraction, and that does go for money, remains centered and grounded, and they persevere in a crisis. One of their great desires is to create prosperity, and not just for themselves, but for others. The liabilities, this is so similar to a Taurus sun sign, is the tendency to devalue something or someone because their value system is not the same. So as Jeffrey Wolfgrain used to call Taurus, the frog in the hole, the frog in the well, doesn't want to see anything except for that tiny piece of the sky that it knows. So it's important to realize your self-worth does not reside in your bank assets. It's the depth of your character and soul. So as we know, many people of great wealth, and all of the people mentioned here created great wealth. Picasso, Aristotle Onassis, FDR came from a wealthy family. Henry Fonda was an exact VSP. When you see them in bold, it means that they were born on the day before, or the day after the exact VSP in Taurus. So Henry Fonda was a Taurus with an exact Taurus VSP. And Carlo Ponti was the husband of our most beautiful Italian actress, whose name is not coming to me right now.
Sophia Loren.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much, Linda. Now, Gertrude Stein was an exact Taurus, and she's got that very sort of plotting quality, even as a poet and as an artist. Scarlett O'Hara is a fictional character, and some of us remember in Gone with the Wind that she made the most beautiful dress out of the curtains. So, whereas the actress Vivian Leigh was a Scorpio, I believe, Scarlett O'Hara herself, the month that the movie came out in May 1936, was a Taurus. Ella Fitzgerald, the great singer. Carol Burnett. Think of the amazing down-to-earthness of Carol Burnett's comedy. It's just incredible. And Nancy Reagan, who was such a strong backbone and caretaker for her husband. Does anybody have any questions about the star point in Taurus at this point? Okay, so Sagittarius, 1830 to 1923. Just like a Sagittarius sun sign, you've got a willingness to journey to new places. You discover new worlds, you make your mark, you understand, and you have a need, a philosophical need to understand cosmic order, how things are related, what's the big picture. You keep your eye on the goal, you have an aptitude for creating solutions, and you have the courage to express your viewpoints. The liability, of course, as I always tell my husband, who's such a strong Sag, open mouth, insert foot. Try not to do that quite as much. If you see it's your way or the highway, you're missing the wisdom in others' points of views. And once you get off that, preachy soapbox, you can really expand the joy within your life as understanding the bigger picture better, not just from your own viewpoint. So the Wright brothers makes perfect sense. Carl Jung, Jesse James, you know, the great, I guess he was a stagecoach robber and criminal, but who captured the imagination of the American public. Albert Einstein, John Wayne, C.S. Lewis, The Witch and the Wardrobe. He was an exact star point. William Hearst, publisher of the San Francisco newspaper, and Diego Rivera was a great explorer. Notice also that Diego's wife, Frida Kahlo, was a Sag, VSP. Madame Blavatsky, who started the spiritualism movement in the US, Lucille Ball, Anais Nin, Katharine Hepburn. And you think of her movie about the Nile River with Bogey. That was a great, great film. Eva Peron, star point in Cancer. There are not as many. It was a relatively shorter transit for that, finishing in 1961. Very easygoing, puts people at ease, nourishes others, has a great capacity for understanding and connecting, and living by one's instinctual feelings and intuition. Liabilities is not being able to get beyond personal wounds. Once you are able to get beyond them and feel the confidence that is so important for you in this lifetime, you will be comforted and comforting to those that you love. So Charlie Chaplin, the humor of Charlie Chaplin. Walter Cronkite was considered the father who came on the news in everyone's living room. And I think he was our primary news anchor for something like 30, almost 40 years. Ringo Starr is an exact VSP in Cancer. Prince Charles, Dan Aykroyd. So many people have absolutely, you know, idolized Dan Aykroyd and the early days of Saturday Night Live. Tom Hanks, you know, the Cancer actor is extremely talented because it goes into infinite detail with the characters. And Montel Williams, talk show host that helps solve a lot of issues for so many. Eleanor Roosevelt, FDR's wife, was considered a mother to the nation, and the Queen Mother of Elizabeth II was a star point in Cancer. Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, who was famous for being sure that lyrics of songs were rated and that there was the ability to edit that. And Marianne Williamson, who so many of us know from her books on healing. Katie Couric was also a very important news anchor in her time. Are there any questions about Cancer or Sag? Okay, the Virgo star point began in 1875, continued through 1984. The ability to come up with logical and practical solutions to problems. When others get confused, you know, Virgo jumps in. An ability to analyze human behavior, to maintain systematic and efficient approaches to daily life. Willingness to be a vehicle for service, and in some cases, divine service. The liabilities are that, you know, there's too much self-judgment and judgment of others. Ultimately, there's always going to be something imperfect that needs improvement. So accept things as they are, put your mind on pause, use meditation, use yoga, and just feel, just relax enough to really feel. Cary Grant, James Stewart, John Paul II, the Pope who spoke so many languages and united the world under Catholicism, who really reanimated Catholicism after a terrible slump. Woody Allen, you think about all of his incredible neuroses. He's like bad Virgo star point incarnate. Bill Gates, you know, he worked on his software until it was the system that defines our generation. Stephen King, evidently there's no writer's block that can stop this man. He just has a huge list of topics he wants to write about and keeps on doing it. Hillary Clinton, Julia Roberts, Celine Dion. If you think of the perfectionism in her singing, in her pitch, in her style. Chrissie Hynde is another punk era musician that I absolutely love. What a beautiful voice. And Stella McCartney is known, Paul McCartney's daughter is known for her fashion. And fashion is very Virgo ruled, because it's about getting it right, creating an individual style that's clean. The Aquarius star point, this is Oprah, this is Ellen DeGeneres, 1890 to 1982. The ability to influence viewpoints of many, potentially changing the world. You can act as a role model, a leader, and you have a detached, objective response to other people's criticism and judgments. You have brilliant ideas that are often very ahead of their time. The liability, of course, is being stuck in your mental, intellectual cage. And so you really need to not let that close you off. It's important to be able to accept love and to relate to others personally, not because they're right, but because you care about them. And so even though you are usually right, allow others to be right too. So if you think about great leaders like Nelson Mandela, like Bill Clinton in his heyday, I think that Garth Brooks as a musician, as a country musician, is a great voice of the people. He's the most popular country star ever. Chris Rock as a comedian really opened the doors to a whole new generation of young Black comics. Ashton Kutcher, he and his punking pranks that he pulls on people will always be very popular. Phil McGraw, TV psychologist, and Bill Moyers, whose work with the great mythology, and I'm not remembering the name of the author now, I'm sorry. The great mythologist in the series on public television brought amazing, important ideas to us all. Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, we've seen how incredibly popular they've become. The moment Ellen DeGeneres came out about being gay, it catapulted her into even greater fame. Mother Teresa, Queen Elizabeth II, Gloria Steinem and the women's movement of the 1970s, Shirley MacLaine. Shirley MacLaine was one of the first actors in Hollywood to make the Celestine Prophecy and other sort of fringe New Age spirituality books popular. Carole King, think of her very pro-women song lyrics, and Helen Gurley Brown, who was the editor, the longtime editor of what's the name of the magazine? I'm so sorry.
Cosmopolitan.
Cosmopolitan, thank you. She created really the first magazine for women that put sex tips on the cover. You know, everything was right out front. And although some people saw her views as sort of objectifying women in certain ways, she also brought women forward. Thank you, Linda. The Scorpio star point, this is Condoleezza Rice, so 1926 to 2027. There's a great desire to grasp the mysteries of life, to empathize with others, to ability to resonate with the shadow side, the mystery, the unconscious. If you've got a secret to keep and you're George Bush, Condoleezza Rice is your pick. She really rose through the ranks. Before Secretary of State, she had a lesser position. And because she was so loyal, she was chosen later for a lot of work on very very sensitive information concerning the Iran-Iraq war. So the greatest obstacle with Scorpio is the many layers of protection you build up to keep people away. The Scorpio VSPs that I know, it's hard to truly feel that they trust you, that you know them. They really want relationships, and they will attach themselves to people of power that can benefit or be mutually beneficial with them. But possession is the thing that they really need to watch out for. Release the hold on things that need to be free. So it's interesting, if you notice, Martin Scorsese starts the list, and then his main leading man, as of the last 15 years, Leonardo DiCaprio, is also an exact Scorpio VSP. These guys get each other in spades. Sai Baba, the Indian mystic, Ted Turner, he's famous for his backstabbing deals with the media. James Dean, the actor, Mick Jagger, always had that, whereas the Beatles were sort of straightforward, let's all have a good time. There was always sort of an undercurrent of the demonic with the Rolling Stones, especially when they put out albums like Satanic Majesty's Request. There's the underbelly there that Mick Jagger can communicate to the audience. And same with David Bowie. There's the sense of the mysteries of the unknown. Fidel Castro, think about his stronghold on Cuba for over 50 years, and now his brother. Steven Spielberg introduced us to E.T. And Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic, communicating the great tragedy of Titanic. Condoleezza Rice, Demi Moore, who grew up the child of parents who really had no control or interest in what she did. So she actually started out in a light porn genre in her first films. Jodie Foster, she's been known for The Silence of the Lambs and the roles that she's played in horror films. Angelina Jolie always has this slight, creepiness about her when she was wearing Billy Bob's vial of blood around her neck on a chain, and he had her blood. Anne Hathaway, the actress. Camilla Parker Bowles, Prince Charles' significant other. Janis Joplin, who died so young, but who took us to places with her voice that others could never go to. Any questions about Scorpio? Aries star point. I have many friends with Aries star point. I'm an Aries Venus. And you may find this about yourself. Your Venus sign and your Venus star point are usually different unless you're an exact or very close to being an exact Venus star point. But you may find that people who have the star point that your Venus is located in are people that you just really can't get enough of, that you feel really close to. The years for this are 1929 to 2038. These are self-made, self-confident, self-directed, rising to the occasion, pioneering kind of people. And they recover from personal injuries and trials quickly. They're back up on their feet, and they have this childlike wonder and hope about the world that seems rather ingenue and rather too innocent, but it's genuine. And you've got to love them for it, because you cannot hold them down. My dear friend, the keeper of the White Buffalo, Cynthia Hart Button, her husband and their close friend, who has been so instrumental in their work, are all Aries star points. The eldest of the Buffalo was a Venus Aries star point. They are here to bring new information to the planet, and nothing will stop them. The liabilities is the impatience and the impulsive nature. It's important to let others prove themselves too. While you like to direct or lead, it's important to slow down, smell the roses, enjoy life. You will get there. So Dustin Hoffman has a very Aries feeling about him, especially in The Graduate, where he seduces Mrs. Robinson. Jack Nicholson, definitely. Ryan O'Neal, another beautiful bad boy type of actor. Bill Cosby, as we see, from his sexploits, there was no boundary to what he was going to take for himself. Bob Dylan definitely broke open the whole connection between the beat poetry of the 50s and rock and roll. Muhammad Ali was so much more than just a boxer, and also became such a spokesman for Parkinson's disease. Barack Obama, our first African-American president, he was, born right out of the box, ready to lead. And as his wife tells in stories, her mother had always said, don't ever date somebody who's working for you. He got her to date him in the first week. And she, as a Capricorn and he's a Leo, she fell for it. And yet he calls her the boss, because Leo and Capricorn have such a strong mutual respect for each other. Women, Jackie Kennedy, think of all the things that she did in the White House, with bringing in French designers, with redesigning the White House, with continuing to hold her head high after her husband had been assassinated, and then went on to her work with the museums of art in New York and in publishing. She was a leader. Jane Fonda, women's right incarnate. Audrey Hepburn, Princess Grace of Monaco, an American, born a regular citizen, marries the prince of a fabulous European country. Jessica Lange, a wonderful, wonderful actress, and you can feel the Aries about her. She is so upfront about what she wants in a character. Anne Margaret was considered the sexiest vixen of the 60s. Princess Diana, Charles had no control over what she was going to do. She was the princess of the people. And J.K. Rowling blew the doors of children's fiction wide open and continues to do it. Gemini star point, 64 to 2073. So this is a much more recent one. They're multi-talented, multitaskers. They're constantly on the go. You usually find them with their, laptop and their phone in the other hand while having a conversation with somebody in the background. They really are storehouses of information on what's new. And, they have this very fun-loving, comedic style about them. And their obstacle is not aiming in a straightforward direction, getting so distracted by the possibilities for fulfillment that they get tired of, they just, every once in a while they crash and all circuits are down and they've got to recuperate. So they've got to just tune more into the heart channel. Don't assume that, the guy you're dating this week is necessarily not a keeper because he doesn't share your every viewpoint. Get to know people better and give them a chance. Dan Brown really was an amazing storehouse of knowledge about the sacred feminine. And when he brought out his several books, 10 years ago now, it was really a revelation. Prince Harry of Wales, he's dating a media star and will be married to her this spring. Ben Affleck, it's hard to keep up with the films that he makes. Will Smith, again, so many different projects at all times, and his whole family is involved in any number of films at any given time. Eminem, a master of words, a master of expressing the people's point of view. Venus Williams, the tennis star. Gwyneth Paltrow. I recently found out she's a country singer, and she's good at it. She's got all kinds of different things that she's interested in. Halle Berry, Jennifer Aniston. Again, you know, producing, acting, constantly plugged into who's who and what's what. She seems to have so many connections. And I guess it's rumored that she and Brad Pitt may be back together. Paris Hilton, you know, she's known as the Hollywood gossip central. Scarlett Johansson, an actress who can do Lost in Translation and then be an action figure star in her next film. A lot of variety and a lot of interest in many varied things at all times is the Gemini star point. Any questions about Gemini? Okay, Capricorn, this is the one that we're currently in. And the previous VSP was in 1735 to 1827. So the people I'll be mentioning are from that era. The youngest Capricorn star points living today were born in 1986 and will continue to be born through 2078. So they're steadfast, they're sure-footed, they take command of situations, they implement practical solutions, they're level-headed, they're cautious, they don't take risks on other people's ideas unless they themselves feel that they're going to be right. Their liabilities is always commitment to duty over all else. It's important not to constantly be expecting everyone to have your same work ethic. You know, your romantic partner loves you because you are strong, but don't shut people out because you're a workaholic. It's important to notch the responsibility quotient down. So allow yourself to be that true loving person, because Capricorn is so loyal and so caring, so fatherly, the good father in so many ways. But remember to be the good father to yourself. It's not all about work. So Prince Albert was one, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Andrew Jackson, Queen Victoria, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Empress Josephine, the wife of Napoleon. The actress Dakota Fanning is wise beyond her years. She plays roles that, you know, a person 10 years her senior would have difficulty with. And also the actress Misha Barton. The Leo star point, this is the last of the ones that are currently alive in large numbers. And so the previous Leo VSP was 1744 to 1849, and the current one is 1987 to 2100. So people would have been born after 1987. So you radiate energy like the sun. You're inspiring to others. You have the power of attraction, the tendency to fame, bravery, creativity, and the ability to create romance. The obstacle to the heart is a need for constant attention and pampering. Once you embrace the equality of all people, then your heart opens wide. When you give, you receive. So Pope Pius VII, Tsar Ivan VI of Russia, Percy Bysshe Shelley, Hans Christian Andersen, and Claude Monet. You think of the paintings of Claude Monet, so romantic and just alluring. Abigail Adams was a Leo star point, wife of the president. Sarah Bernhardt, the actress, who began acting at a very young age and evidently had a tremendous charisma. And Louisa May Alcott, author. The Libra star point and the Pisces will not go into effect until 2022 for Libra, until 2131, And Pisces will begin in 2041 and continue to 2133. So if you're interested in those, please look at the slides from the PowerPoint for information on that. Now, Linda, I realize that we're close to time. I'm hoping that we have a few minutes to go into the Oprah Winfrey.
Yes, of course. You can take up to 10 minutes if you wish.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'm going to put Oprah's chart up here. And this is November 3rd, 2020, Election Day in the United States. Her Venus star point, if you can see my pointer, is over here in the 6th house. And the transiting Venus star point of that date would be over there in her 6th house.
Kari,
yes?
We're not seeing the slide for Oprah.
Oh, I've got to new share.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Share screen. Okay, so the transiting Venus star point on that date will be 1336 of Gemini, and you'll see that that is so close to her Jupiter. And Venus-Jupiter conjunctions are an expansion of her already huge charisma. There also will be conjunct the transiting North Node in Gemini, and interestingly, there will be an eclipse, so you've got the moon conjunct the North Node. So that's a pretty incredible transit for her personal chart and for an election day as is. So it's really pretty incredible. The sun is over here at 12, so I'll have to actually look and see when it would be at the Sag point, but it's building to the eclipse. Now, the other thing that's so significant is that her VSP personally is in Aquarius, so it's going to be down here very close to conjunct her Sun Venus exact star point at 8 and 9 degrees Aquarius. Her Mercury is also there, so we see yet again why she's the queen of the airwaves and why she's made such a tremendous fortune in using the airwaves. So the VSP will, her personal birth VSP will be here in the 2nd house. So she's having a VSP return. Jupiter will be in the 1st house, conjunct Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn. So we've got the grand stellium already brewing here. And that happens to be conjunct her North Node at 23 Capricorn, conjunct Chiron at 23 Capricorn. And she often has talked about how her wounding, her Chiron wounding through sexual abuse as a child was what took her, which was what pressed her on in her education and wanting to become a working woman out in the world, not a hushed woman, barefoot and pregnant, as she says, in Mississippi behind a closed door. So this lineup as well is just tremendous with Pluto on her North Node Chiron conjunction and Jupiter Saturn flanking. Oftentimes, Kim Marie spoke about presidents having their sun, their natal sun, in the 12th house, but it's not in every chart by all means. And her moon is very close to being in the 12th house, which gives a universal appeal. So seeing that the South Node, the node is in her 12th house, gives an echo of that feeling that the node of the moon at least is in the 12th. Mercury's in the 10th, conjunct her Neptune. Mercury conjunct Neptune is when a time when people can give very, very transporting speeches that are memorable and for the ages. So whether she's giving a speech of acceptance and standing down to whomever would be elected, or whether she's giving an amazing acceptance speech for herself, remains to be seen. I think that this chart really holds great potential, also with Mars here on the IC, the strength of that Aries moving forward, communicating her deep inner thoughts and feelings, really portends great things for her running. Any comments or questions? So, yes.
I have a comment. I'm surprised that you are looking at her. I think it's the chart of the conjunction of Venus and the Sun, and not her birth chart.
Yes, here is her birth chart on the inner ring.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And here is the date, November 3rd, for the day of the American election.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is born with the conjunction of Venus and the Sun then.
Yes, she is. She's an exact archetype. Thank you for bringing that forward. Yes.
So this become very powerful then.
Absolutely. Tremendously powerful. And do you know Ellen DeGeneres, the talk show host, the American talk show? Yes, she also is an exact Venus Sun in Aquarius. Both of these women who rule the American television viewing public airwaves. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I always have find her very fascinating, and I have learned a lot from her, and my point star, it is a 10 Aquarius also.
Ah, fantastic. So yes, you feel the connection to her.
I do.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Marie. Thank you very much. So whether this is to be or not, we shall see. And I think it would be so interesting to keep up with the Mayan astrology on Oprah Winfrey and how she's moving forward. So I'm going to volunteer, Linda, to bring Jose Federico Munoz in again as we get closer to this election.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would be so exciting.
Great. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. It's really a pleasure. I so enjoy doing this work. And again, if you need to look up the book, it's The Venus Star Points, A New Cosmology for the 21st Century, published by Ariel Gutman, 2010.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kari. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you next year sometime.
Yes, and I'll let you know. I'm starting some new areas of research, and I will be in touch with you. You're doing such a wonderful service for the EA community. I think this is a fantastic idea, and so appreciative of your work.
Great.
And to the people attending.
And it's great having you, Kari. So thank you from all of us, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, thank you. I'll stop share. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Kari. That was excellent.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.